Hello, I'm Jesse McAnally.
And I am Andrew DeWolf.
And I'm Brianna Jones.
And welcome to Musicals with Cheese, a podcast where I try to get Andrew and Bree to like musical theater. How are you doing today, Andrew?
Well, I'm working on this new piece.
Okay, lay it on me.
Okay, so I went down to the park and this little kid was there and he had this great idea for a story, you know? And I'm thinking about just ripping it and just stealing the whole thing and then naming the main character after the kid.
Brilliant. What's the idea though?
Some nonsense about like pirates and stuff. I don't know.
Oh, brilliant. Actually, no, you fool, that'll never work. I am everyone else in your life to be proven wrong when you get to your success.
Well, I guess I'll have to do it to spite you.
All right, we'll see how it works. Oh no, it was a big success. Thanks for all the free money forever.
Hey, no problem. Thanks for
And also your wife's cheating on you.
Dang, that stinks, but it's a good thing I'm cheating on her too, so it's all good.
In case you haven't picked up what we're throwing down, this week we're talking about Finding Neverland. Cue the music, Bree.
We can sail away tonight on a sea of pure moonlight. We can navigate the stars to bring us back home. In a place so far away, we'll be young, that's how we'll stay. Every wish is a command. We will find ourselves in Neverland.
Finding Neverland is a musical written by James Graham, but Alan Nee in the original production, with music and lyrics by Gary Barlow and Elliot Kennedy. But the original music and lyrics in the original production was by Scott Frankel and Michael Corey. And there was also national tour revisions by Elliot Kennedy and James Graham. It was based on the 1998 play The Man Who Was Peter Pan by Alan Nee, and its 2004 film version, Finding Neverland. Previews for Broadway began March 15th, 2015, with the official opening April 15th at the L'Enfantin Theater. The Broadway production closed on August 21st, 2016 after 565 performances. Despite being nominated for absolutely no Tony Awards, they did perform at the Tonys that year because their producer, Harvey Weinstein, paid the fee to do so. He also strong-armed the Tonys to let them perform a song from the musical the year before it even opened, with Jennifer Hudson performing. Guess money can really get you anything except out of prison.
No, I can do that too.
Hasn't done it yet.
Not for him.
Not for him. The plot of Finding Neverland is based on the Miramax motion picture by David McGee and the play The Man Who Was Peter Pan by Alan Nee. Finding Neverland follows the relationship between playwright J.M. Barrie and the family that inspired Peter Pan, or The Boy That Wouldn't Grow Up, one of the most beloved stories of all time. What'd you think of Finding Neverland, and which version did you watch? Because there's like 4 distinctly different versions of this musical.
I watched the Glee adaptation. No, but I watched it was the Broadway one, right? With the Glee guy?
Yeah, with Matthew Morrison and Kelsey Grammer.
Yeah, so the Grinch was the lead.
Grinch was the lead, and what is Kelsey Grammer? Sideshow Bob was the other guy.
Sure. It was all right, I guess. I didn't love it or anything, but it was functional in a way. I don't know. I'm not a big fan of Peter Pan, and there was a lot of fan service, a lot.
Yep.
It was every moment was you were supposed to be oh, that's where he got the idea, and oh my goodness, that's where the pirates came from. Oh wow, that's how he figured out Captain Hook would be the character. And it was okay,
and the audience would lost their shit every time. Literally every time. The one I remember the best is the Captain Hook one, where the producer guy holds up his cane and there's literally a music sting and the spotlight shines on it, and it's yeah, Captain Hook is the guy, the producer he didn't got but
it.
In that version, there's also other metatextual bullshit, when they reference Cheers, the TV show that Kelsey Grammer was in, and then they stop the show make a music cue, look at the audience, and they scream and lose their fucking heads and shit.
Yeah, it's just... I don't want to say it's, like, terrible, but it is not good.
I'm gonna go out on a limb and call it terrible.
You're gonna call it terrible? Okay.
I'm gonna be that guy. Only because I dove deep into this show. This show that I did not like. I had a Benoit Blanc fascination with it. It makes no damn sense, but it compels me. So I wanted to see where it came from. Where did you go to get to where it is? So I had to go back to its original UK production at the Curve Theatre and Leicester. And that's a different show altogether. A different book writer, a different composer, a different attitude towards the entire musical proceedings. And, in my opinion, a much better one. Obviously rough around the edges, but it could have been something really special, in my opinion. And I had only discovered this yesterday in relation to when we are recording this. So I was well aware of the art production with Jeremy Jordan. I was well aware of the original Broadway production with Matthew Morrison. As well, I watched the national tour production where they did do significant changes to that. And let me just say, the national tour guy did the best Scottish accent. Everyone else, variations of terrible to okay. So if you guys will indulge me, and especially you, Andrew, would you mind you and I comparing the Broadway run starring Matthew Morrison to the Leicester run from 2012? So it's between 2015 and 2012, the difference that this show became.
Well, I've only seen one of them, so I'll do my best.
No, you focus on Broadway. Tell me what happens there, and then I'll tell you what happens in the 2012 original version. Okay. So break down the plot of the Finding Neverland Broadway show and what happens.
So it's just I want to say a fictionalized account of the writing of Peter Pan, which I guess I didn't know Peter Pan was originally a play, unless that is also fictional.
No, I thought
it was a book. Okay, so it was originally a play. Okay.
Yeah.
This guy, you may have heard of, his name's something Barry.
J.M. Barry, James Barry.
Yep. He like meets this like family, I think. So he meets this family. The kids are Peter and two other kids that probably don't matter at all. I'm sure they have names. Yeah, they have names, but I don't think they matter as much as Peter does. They're very imaginative, and Barry starts using their ideas, and he also falls in love with the mom.
Yes.
And I mean, that's kind of the whole plot. There's other stuff that goes on, but like what could possibly be so different?
Okay, let's break down like the specifics, if you don't mind. And I know you don't always love the specifics of it, but this is where it gets really important and why the Broadway production doesn't work. So how does your show open? Like, describe the exact opening. Like, is there an opening number? Like, what goes on, Andrew?
Oh my goodness.
Because mine opens with James Barry having a nightmare about going to court for crimes against his audience for writing such a shitty show, which is interesting. And it's like against like all writers putting him on trial, which shows it's not a song either. It's just a scene that opens it up, and then he's just at the bench.
I'm pretty sure he just sings a pop song. Yes. I can't even fully remember what it was supposed to be about. It was like some sort of like mushy like imagination or something.
Well, that's a good question, because in every production of the show there's a different opening number. So in Cambridge in Massachusetts, it opens with Anywhere But Here. On Broadway, it opens with a song called If the World Turned Upside Down, and the national tour starts with a song called Welcome to London and My Imagination. And in the Leicester version, which I'm focusing on, the original UK run, which is the first production with the original writers, no opening number really, just an opening scene, and then 2-minute mark, James Barry meets the boys.
That's a good way to open it.
Like, we don't have to see him going through the politics of the theater bullshit. 2 minutes into the show, no songs, no opening number. They introduce the boys bickering, and every one of the boys gets introduced significantly before Sylvia, which I think is very important. because the Broadway show, he basically meets Sylvia, and it seems like he's only hanging out with the boys to fuck her.
Which is kind of true.
Yes,
if you look at it.
But my musical puts that idea on trial in a weird way. And it opens with, and the sound is very different. So this is by Scott Frankel and Michael Corey. They wrote, and Michael Corey wrote Grey Gardens, War Paint, Dr. Zhivago, and directed by Rob Ashford, who did the London production of Parade. And it's a very classic musical, and with music in the style of Les Miserables more than Dear Evan Hansen.
That's a positive comparison.
Yes. It could never happen here, which is like the first kind of like really big number in the song. It feels like just a normal classic musical from the 90s or 80s. Julian Ovenden, who plays James Barry, doesn't even try a Scottish accent until like halfway through the first act, and then he just turns it on for some reason, which is very weird. And it's just a better introduction to everything, including the boys. And they go through painstaking efforts to show that he's not doing it to try to fuck their mom.
But is he?
Not really. They also go through the acts of Peter Pan does not even get name dropped as an idea in the first act. He is not writing that play at all in the first act. The first act is just him ingratiating himself with his family and his wife. What does his wife do in the Broadway version? I'm curious. Tell me.
Is his wife even really in it?
Yes, she is.
I feel like she's like barely there.
She's given a different personality trait in every version, but she is in it.
Honestly, I don't remember what she does. I'll be fucking straight with you.
So she is just a shrew in the Broadway version. She is just, no, you can't do that. You're embarrassing me, and you're terrible. And she is what's her name? That's why
movie. You get this very strong feeling that he just wants to go be with the mom of the boys.
Where in the original production, she was an actress that just wants to be cast in one of his plays and is supportive of him writing and doing good work because that opens her up to good work. And he's just kind of like not present in her life, and they go out of their way to show that Barry is not a good husband. Like, he buys her flowers that she's allergic to, and she's not angry. She's like, I can't get near that kind of stuff.
I think the Broadway show, they like to trim down a lot of Barry's flaws, and by a lot, I mean like all
of them.
Like, he is essentially a perfect, wholesome being of pure imagination and joy and childlike wonder, and no one around him understands, because how could anyone be so full of wonder and joy at all times?
Which this does that, but they also poke a lot of holes in it, meaning that he's a bad person, not in the way that a film or a story tells you they're a bad person because society says, but as a bad person because it looks like you're doing a bad person thing, and it reads that way. So how would you describe the relationship between Sylvia and Barry in the Broadway production?
They just feel like a traditional romance to me.
Okay.
Like, by the end, you're like expecting them to start making out, you know?
And then she dies instead. Spoilers.
Yes, she does die instead, and everyone is very sad. But Barry's now the dad, so it's okay. And they call him Dad.
That is totally unearned, because they make it a recurring thing in this one that they don't call him father and all of that. And I don't think that comes up in the Broadway one until the end scene.
Yeah, and at the very end, they just drop it where the kid's like, Dad, and there's like a pause so the audience can go, oh.
And they do, because we're idiots.
Yes.
So Sylvia in the original production was a fangirl of Barry, like knew his work inside and out, and just had this deeply parasocial relationship that was a little unhealthy and one-sided. So much that both him and her mother calls her out for it, like, you are going after a married man. It looks bad for you. I'm not saying this because you shouldn't do what you want, but it really, really is bad for you to cuck this man's wife. At least find yourself a rich husband. Oh, yes, mother, I'll take an advertisement and let all of London know how desperate I am. And all of London already knows how desperate you are. Like, that's an actual pretty powerful line, where in the Broadway version, the mother character's just, I don't want you with this man because I'm the bad guy.
Yeah.
And the producer character, not really a character in the original Leicester production. Doesn't really exist, because it's not about Peter Pan. It's about this family unit.
Honestly, the producer character needs to exist in the Broadway show because without him, there's like no conflict, like at all.
Exactly.
Like he's like the main villain, like to the point where they literally make him Captain Hook.
Here, like, yeah, Captain Hook appears for like a second, but it means more. Does Mary and Sylvia ever meet in your Broadway production? Like, they meet at a dinner party, right?
Probably. I don't remember them interacting, though.
There's a whole song about how much these two women are like, oh no, she seems wonderful, and that makes me insecure. Like, talking about how great this other woman is in both of their lives and how neither of them are good enough for Barry. Like, there's a proper, like, love triangle situation going on throughout the entire first act. And Act 1 ends with no Peter Pan at all, for one. Not even a reference of Peter Pan at the end of it. Act 1 ends with him finding out his wife's cheating on him, Sylvia asking him to please stay away from her family, and basically just getting everyone turning against him, basically.
Act 1 in the Broadway show, I think, ends with a big Captain Hook imaginary number.
Yep.
That doesn't even, like, happen in the real world. It's just like he's just with all the pirates from Captain Hook. You know Captain Hook, right? Haha. He's assembling the Peter Pan cinematic universe.
Captain Hook does show up at the end of Act 1 of this version, but he sings a sea shanty about, like, how he shouldn't give up, as opposed to, like, the original where he sings, like, this epic power ballad because every song has to be Memory from Cats in that version.
Live by the hook, baby.
But the important thing is at the end of Act 1 of the original version, Peter calls out Barry saying, you're just hanging out with me and my brothers because you want to fuck my mom. And that's not right. And all of Act 2 is putting that on trial, basically. Like, saying,
I mean,
it's
that's
kind of fucked up he did this.
It's a much better conflict than just, is he gonna write Peter Pan?
Right. And that is the only fucking conflict in the Broadway version.
And it's like, of course he's gonna write Peter Pan. Like, what? Like, why? How would he not? Like, I guess I'd be impressed if they ended it where he didn't write Peter Pan.
So Act 2 becomes more about Peter Pan, but it's like it's wallpaper for the actual family drama going on. It's much closer to the Broadway version, which I think Act 2 is better than the Broadway version too. But I just wanted to paint that picture of how we had this, like, intense family drama that's not even like the original film this is based on. Instead, it's more of this dark tale with Peter Pan as, like, this small little thing. And there's no references to it. It's just an idea that he has, really. And he asks permission of each boy to name them after the characters before he starts writing. There's important things that go on and makes it a much smarter and more enthusiastic piece of theater, and that's not even talking about how much better written the songs are.
But can we also talk about how it compares to what happened in the real world?
That's what we're going to transition to right here, because neither the Broadway show, the Leicester version, or the movie Finding Neverland are anything compared to the original real-life things that happened. So we framed this as J.M. Barrie walking into his life of a single mother and their kids, and then falling in love with all of them. But in real life, the single mother had a husband that was alive, very much alive when J.M. Barrie ran into them. In fact, he was very uncomfortable with their relationship.
Oops.
So he
that would have been an interesting thing to include in, something like this.
According to some accounts, the former, people viewed it with very suspiciously. However, J.M. Barrie even included Arthur, who was the husband, in the dedication to the start of Peter Pan in Kensington Gardens, to which it read, to Sylvia and Arthur, Llewellyn Davis, and their boys, in parentheses, my boys, which is a little bit of a turf push.
My boys.
If you ask me. But when Arthur died at 44 of cancer of the jaw, Barrie basically stepped in and replaced him, but he also paid for all of their medical bills and paid a lot of their, paid for all of that. So Barrie was married at the time he met Sylvia Llewellyn Davis. His wife, he never fucked her, which was apparently well-known information. So
just everybody knew?
Yeah, everyone knew that he didn't fuck her. And so she went and cheated on him because she had needs that he wasn't fulfilling, and he just divorced her on a whim. And then Sylvia died.
He did have a very nice mustache, though.
He did, and no production has ever included the mustache.
Which is kind of sad, really. Imagine you have a very distinctive look like that, and there's adaptations of your life, and none of them include that.
Mm-hmm. I do also want to talk about the Peter Pan curse that we talked about.
The Peter Pan curse.
The ending of the
We're gonna have to
show
explain this one.
is absurdly happy. It's almost like it's begging you to not Google what happened to the boys after the movie and musical ends.
But we did.
Yeah. Peter Llewellyn Davis, who Peter Pan was quote-unquote based on, according to some sources, he would win the military cross for his efforts in World War I, and he became a publisher, but his lifelong notoriety with the character Peter Pan troubled him greatly. He once referred to the play as that terrible masterpiece, though no one is certain why his association with the character bothered him so much. It is certain that Peter felt insulted when James Barrie left his fortune to his secretary, Cynthia Asquith, and not to the Davies boys, who were the inspiration for Peter Pan. Peter's son, Ruthven, that's an awesome name, by the way, wrote, "My father had mixed feelings about the whole business of Peter Pan. He accepted that Barrie considered that he had the inspiration for Peter Pan. It was only reasonable that my father should inherit everything from Barrie. That was my father's expectation. It would have recompensed him for the notoriety he had experienced since being linked with Peter Pan, something he hated." So it was not a good life for young Peter there. On April 5th, 1960, almost 7 months after the death of his brother John, 63-year-old Peter committed suicide by throwing himself under a train as it was pulling into the station at Sloane Square, London. It is not known why Peter took his life, but apparently he was, while in the balance of his mind was disturbed. So we know a lot about Peter Pans in the world, and I think the one Peter Pan is played by a woman, or there is a connection to a woman, they tend to be all right. The men who play Peter Pan tend to have pretty rough ends so far.
Yeah, well, you didn't even mention the other Peter Pans.
Well, okay.
I mean, who else has played Peter Pan? Who do we got?
We got Bobby Driscoll.
Yep.
And why don't you explain what happened to him?
I think we've gone into it before, but I think Bobby met a similar fate to
Peter Llewellyn Davies.
Yeah.
Well, Bobby
couldn't get cast in anything as an adult.
Yeah, was thrown out by Walt Disney himself, and he played it in the Disney film. Got into drugs and overdosed in an apartment, but he was unrecognizable, so he was buried in an unmarked grave until his mother went looking for him like 15 years after his death. So not the happiest end for them. And of course, Robin Williams played Peter Pan in the film Hook, and not the happiest end for him as either. I'm sure we all know that one.
Yeah, and of course we have to have Disney mocking Peter Pan's struggles in the
Chippendale
Rescue Rangers. So basically, don't play Peter Pan.
Yeah.
Someone offers you a role as Peter Pan, I'd recommend against it.
There is a new Peter Pan movie coming out next year. With a new young boy playing Peter Pan, and let's take care of that kid, please.
Be nice.
I don't tend to really have much faith in curses, but I'm a little concerned about that.
It's a little too much with the Peter Pan.
Let's go into our favorite section, brand new section called Wild Facts. So in 1929, Barrie gave the copyright of Peter Pan to the Great Ormond Street Hospital for Children. Even though the UK copyright expired in 1987, 50 years after Barrie's death, then Prime Minister Lord Callaghan successfully proposed an amendment to the Copyrights Act, which gave Great Ormond Street the unique right to royalties from stage performances of Peter Pan and any adaptation of the play forever. What do you think about that? Because I know...
I get that it's supposed to be like a charitable act of like we're going to give this hospital royalties forever on this Peter Pan thing, but like I don't know, doesn't that make it harder to perform the play and like forever?
I that is a good question, but I feel like folks like Disney, that's a drop in the bucket.
Sure. But, yeah, I mean I get what they're trying to do. I am iffy on extending copyright of any kind though. So I'm not sure how I feel on it.
I feel like you'd be concerned on both sides.
I get what they're trying to do, and I get that in this particular case they're trying to be caring and nice, but anything that extends copyright forever is maybe a bad precedent.
I'd say in the US, yes, and London, maybe not.
I don't know. I'm of the opinion that copyright is a bad practice and probably shouldn't exist in its current state at all. So it's a bad question for me to try to answer.
That's fair. Another wild fact. In 2017, as an offshoot of the investigation into and reporting about Harvey Weinstein's many sexual abuse allegations, several news sources also reported that a significant amount of money that Weinstein ostensibly raised for the AIDS charity AMFAR was instead allegedly funneled into the American Repertory Theater and the production budget for Finding Neverland. So, this show was produced with very dirty money.
Wow. Did he even get in trouble for that?
I mean, he's definitely in prison.
Yes, but did he get in trouble for this?
I don't know. I feel like there was a lot of other things pending on his plate at the time.
You raised money for an AIDS charity and instead put it into a production of a musical that you're going to make money off of. Not a good look. This Harvey Weinstein guy, I don't know a ton about him, but he seems like a bad dude.
Yeah, I don't know.
Have to do a little more research into this guy.
The final and actually the penultimate fun wild fact. It is rumored that J.M. Barrie may have been impotent. However, it is just as likely that Barrie and his wife, actress Mary Ansell, rarely fucked. Barrie had little interest in sex, and he found more pleasure in playing around with other people's children than having his own.
He what now?
His biographer stumbled upon several revealing entries from some of Barrie's private notebooks, which seems to indicate his feelings about marriage. It's kind of gross. I'm not reading that.
You can't just
feels
leave
like
us
he
hanging
could be
there.
trapped. And the last wild fact, J.M. Barrie suffered from psychological dwarfism. As an adult, he stood at only 4'10". This is a whole foot shorter than his on-screen counterparts on stage and screen. Psychogenic dwarfism is a growth disorder that occurs between the ages of 2 and 15, brought on by extreme emotional deprivation or stress. The condition results in decreased growth hormone, GH secretion, inappropriate height and weight, and immature skeletal age. This is one of those wild facts that are contested because other places say that James Barrie was 5'3".
5'3" is still very short, but it's not like 4.
Yeah.
It's not 4'10".
But I would be interested to see Peter Dinklage play James Barrie. He could probably do an actual Scottish accent and make the...
Isn't Peter Dinklage... I guess I don't know how tall Peter Dinklage is.
Peter
but I feel
Dinklage
like
is
he's
4'5".
4'5". I was going to say he does seem too short for 4'10", but I guess I don't know how tall 4'10" is.
It's pretty short. It's like an inch shorter than Kristen Chenoweth, which is tiny. So those are the wild facts for this week. Pretty sad, honestly. These are some of the saddest wild facts. Maybe like a small like kitten sound here.
So like Peter Pan is such a like wholesome story-ish, like at least it's portrayed that way.
If you ignore
but
like
everything
the Native
around
Americans.
Everything around it is just horrible and depressing. And every time we talk about Peter Pan, it's like a downer mood.
Like, what do you mean? Like, we got Rainbow Cardigan out of Peter Pan. The fuck you talking about?
The Rainbow Cardigan thing was not a good thing. It was just funny.
I don't know. I think that's one of the best things that's ever happened on this show.
Can we both agree that it was a very bad decision to make Peter Pan the bad guy in the Chip and Dale movie?
Yes, I can agree to that. Peter Pan's use in media is strange because Peter Pan is not a good character. And that's part of the reason why Disney hated that film is because he thought Peter Pan was a shitty character. He like literally said, I have more empathy for Captain Hook than I do for Peter Pan.
I mean, Peter Pan is genuinely a selfish little boy, like who the actual motives are that of like a lich. Like, I never want to age, you know? Like,
yeah. And what's the connection to James Barrie? So I do dress rehearsals for this show where I tell my significant other all the things I want to say on the episode and all that. And they looked at me when I described the plot of Finding Neverland, and they were like, this tiny man is playing with little boys the same height as them, and then he just rips off their life to write a play that like soaks up all their life into it and expects them to just deal with that.
Yeah, and it's kind of, I don't know, Finding Neverland, they take it and they make it into like a he is connected with them in like a very deep personal way. But if you actually look at it, he just wrote a story based on stuff that they did, which is kind of weird.
Which is fine. You take from everywhere in your life as an artist, but
do you take from everywhere, or do you take from a couple boys you met?
I don't know. And let's think about these boys, the wife, and all these characters. Like, Sylvia Llewellyn-Davis did not ask for this in her life. She did not ask to be made iconic by Kate Winslet or Laura Michelle Kelly in these stories. She didn't ask for her name to be in the limelight where people just know that she died and that her kids were running around with a grown man.
That's just how we do it with some of these stories, though.
I guess.
We take stuff that really happened and we just twist it into whatever narrative we need it to, for better or worse.
Mostly worse.
Although it does feel like mostly worse.
But look at this show where this is a product. This isn't a story. Like, the Broadway final version, I put a tweet out yesterday about it, and I literally just asked, hey, what are your opinions on Finding Neverland? This one, I do this for a lot of shows where I'm trying to figure out how I feel and what the general consensus is. This one was a little different because Broadway theater critics started replying and tweeting at it.
Really?
Yes.
Were they diplomatic?
No. Jack Viertel, who follows me, which is a strange thing, he is an artistic director, a New York writer, replied, it's simply awful. And then Adam Green, who is also a writer for The New Yorker and Vogue magazine, replied, I panicked in the middle of Act 1 because for professional reasons, I couldn't leave at intermission, and I had no idea how I was going to survive all the way through. My most hated...
What? Oh my God.
And then Mr. David Gordon, who is a Theater Mania Outer Critics Circle critic, replied, no worse than Dr. Zhivago.
Wait, what was that?
That was another musical by the original composers, not the pop composer that came in. However, from the normal people, which is who I was really trying to get connected to, range from long and boring, Jeremy Jordan should have moved to Broadway, who played it in Massachusetts and then was replaced by Matthew Morrison. And in my opinion, they're negligible. They both do fine-ish work.
Honestly, I didn't actually have any problem with the Glee guy. I thought he was fine. I think that no, I mean, but like, what? Nobody's gonna do the accent. Like, I feel like the problems with the show is not who is playing the main character. There's a lot of deeper issues.
But there are a lot of people that are like, absolutely loved it, absolutely. But you know the most recurring statement about it was?
Sure.
The fucking sparkle tornado is really cool. That was the most consistent note about it. And you know what? The sparkle tornado is really cool. I can't even fight that. That moment in this show is magical and uncomparable. Do you even remember the sparkle tornado?
I do remember the sparkle tornado. It was neat. It's a good effect.
It's a good effect, but and then the scarf flies up. Someone said, give that scarf a Tony.
Yeah.
But if all that your show has to offer is a sparkle tornado at the last moment in the second act, is it really worth it?
Give King Kong the Tony.
Well, yeah. They did, though. Before we move on to previews, I do want to talk about the pop song cover album they made of this. So
it isn't already a pop song cover album just when it's on stage?
It is, which is why it kind of makes no sense and is very bad. But in 2015, a year after it closed, Harvey Weinstein brought together a bunch of pop stars to sing songs from this show. And I just want Brie to take a look at some of these stars, these people, and tell me like what her thoughts are about them. So here's who we've got on this list. We've got
Zendaya, very popular around that time. These are a lot of big names. Nick Jonas, Ellie Goulding, Bon Jovi, Jennifer Lopez, and Trey Songz.
Yep.
Yeah.
Pentatonix, Christine Perry, the Goo Goo Dolls.
Yeah, like how much do you think this album costs to put together?
Fuck ton for songs that are pretty bad for a musical that nobody really liked.
They got that Harvey Weinstein money though.
Why though? Why do this?
Because they saw a commercial product. They're selling nostalgia. It's a classic formula.
In theory, Finding Neverland the musical should be a surefire hit if you care about the characters. Like, it should be a Wicked, because it's like, oh, a story I don't quite know that well, but it's the IP I recognize. But
yeah,
there's so many fucking Peter Pan musicals already. You've got the original. You've got Peter and the Starcatcher. You've got the one done by, oh god, I forget the other one. There's another one that isn't the one we covered, done by a famous person I can't remember. We're all sick of this story in a way that we're not quite sick of the Wizard of Oz yet.
Soon. Yeah, Peter Pan, it's weird because Peter Pan, when I think of Peter Pan, I don't think of him as like a pop culture, like, mega star, you know? But at the same time, there is just a ton of adaptations of this character.
I think one of the wildest moments on this podcast ever is when I showed you the Smells Like Teen Spirit scene from the movie Pan from 2015.
Yes. Which for some reason I keep thinking that that's from Hook, but it's not.
No, it is not. Hook is a quality movie. And would have probably made a better stage musical than Finding Neverland, honestly.
I'm surprised that they haven't done that yet.
It was written to be a musical. That was supposed to be Spielberg's first musical. Like, all the songs were in there, and then they just, John Williams wrote songs for that movie with a lyricist. And then Spielberg got cowardly at the last minute and just turned it all into, interstitial music.
What a baby.
I know. That movie could have been great if it had songs. But
I do remember the Smells Like Teen Spirit thing. That was bad.
Most Peter Pan adaptations are bad. Like, not gonna lie. Hook is the only good one.
Is Peter Pan just a bad story?
I think it's like Pinocchio, where every director, for some reason, really wants to make fucking Pinocchio. Like, that was Stanley Kubrick's White Whale that he really wanted, and then Spielberg directed instead. Guillermo del Toro just directed one. Roberto Benigni's first thing after he won his Oscar, he wanted to make a Pinocchio movie. Robert Zemeckis just made one for Disney. Every director wants to fucking make Pinocchios for some reason. And you know what? Pinocchio is not that interesting a story. I'm sorry, y'all.
I don't even understand what the appeal is. It's not like some artsy premise. Like, there's not a ton you can do with it. It's just a fairy gives a puppet powers or whatever and turns it real.
No,
eventually.
Andrew, it's about an artist bringing something to life that can walk and breathe and really love.
You're right. Now it makes sense. Because all the filmmakers, they're the artists, and they want to bring something to life themselves. Yes, yeah. When's your version of Pinocchio coming out?
I wouldn't make Pinocchio because I think it's a boring story. Like, unless you're doing something very different with it. Like Astro Boy, at least that's something different. And AI, which was Kubrick and Spielberg's Pinocchio, that's something different enough where I'm like, okay, that's kind of interesting. But if you're just going to do a straight Pinocchio adaptation, why would you do that?
If I were to make a Pinocchio adaptation, it would be a screwball comedy, and they'd all have very silly Italian accents.
That's basically Roberto Benigni's.
They talk about eating the spaghetti and the meatballs. In the gabagoo. Pinocchio would be in the mafia.
You know what? Pinocchio in the mafia? Wow. You can't rat on us. You gotta lie. You gotta lie to the police.
You talking about my son puppet like that? Look what you did to my boy.
Is your father selling any drugs? Come on, tell me, Pinocchio. No. Oh, we got him.
You don't have a very good poker face.
They try to garrote him, but it just cuts into the wood.
Wait a second. This is a great idea.
They try to drown him, but he walks out a few days later. Papa, I'm back.
Wait a second. Why is this like a brilliant idea? Why is this like actually great?
We found our Pinocchio pitch. We finally did it. One that hasn't been done.
Pinocchio in the mob.
On that note, how about we compare our opinions to those of the New York Times critic when this first came out? It's time for previews.
It's time for previews. It's time for previews.
All right, Bree, what have we got?
Yeah, so we have a Ben Brantley here.
Hey, my boy.
Hey.
Okay, and he said, the first entrance applause occurs before even the overture begins. Riotous clapping is occasioned with a bright point of light travels over the ceiling and the curtains of the Luntfontein Theater in New York, where the button-pushing musical, Finding Neverland, opened on Wednesday night.
I got a Brantleyism. A button-pushing music. What the Okay, whatever.
If you say something twice, people will think it's smart.
Twice and backwards.
This little light you see is pretty much guaranteed to elicit a Pavlovian response from anyone familiar with the story of Peter Pan in its various incarnations, which surely includes everyone who shelled out the big bucks for this show. Said light equals Tinkerbell.
Said light
He gets the
equals
metaphor.
Tinkerbell.
He understands the
This is
the-
a complicated
the substance.
show.
Yeah.
Yeah, all right. So said light equals Tinkerbell, the temperamental fairy who requires your applause to stay alive. Clap if you believe in brand names.
I clapped because I knew what he was referencing.
Yeah.
Directed by Diane Paulus with the guidance of Harvey Weinstein, its chief producer. Ugh. Finding Neverland is filled with such triggers.
Triggered Snowflake? Did Tinkerbell trigger you to clap?
Yes.
The most brazen, perhaps, comes when an English actor in a pub asks an American, "Do they say cheers where you come from, mate?" The simple query sets the audience aroar. That's because the man playing the American happens to be Kelsey Grammer, who was a regular on the long-running sitcom Cheers.
Ugh.
Neither Mr. Grammer nor the show's leading man, Matthew Morrison, of the television series Glee, appear wholly invested in their performance. But that's okay. Their mere presence do most of the work for them. As with a Broadway musical these days, Finding Neverland, which features a book by James Graham and sticky soft pop power ballads by Gary Barlow and Elliot Kennedy, is based on a popular film. That would be the 2004 biopic about the playwright J.M. Barrie and the creator of Peter Pan, which starred Johnny Depp, and for which Mr. Weinstein was an executive producer.
Wow.
I mean, I can't say that anything he says here is incorrect.
No, but the way he says it.
He has a way of making anything he says sound wrong, but it's not. He's completely correct. Everything in this is absolutely just trying to be like, hey, you know this. You should like this because you know this. Like over and over. And yeah, the Cheers thing is like the worst because they're not even referencing Peter Pan anymore. Now they're just talking about fucking Cheers.
That was the moment where I was like, I'm done. I can't do this. I was so close to turning it off.
Wait a second. Are you Mr. Cheers from The Cheers?
Or are you Mr. Frasier from The Frasier?
Wow.
I am neither. I am a classically trained actor Kelsey Grammer. Vote for Trump.
Yikes.
Damn.
Yeah. I do appreciate Jesse Green, who also reviewed it for Vulture. He basically was like, it just feels so hollow, and I can tell that they just didn't have interest in talking about the less positive aspects of J.M. Barrie in this entire story, because they just wanted people to shove this down their throat like a work of fantasy. And I kind of
Did you know
appreciated
that complex characters can be interesting and fun to watch?
Yeah, like
even more so than characters without flaws.
Yeah, and like Geppetto, he's a part of the mob, and he made himself a boy, and the boy was to take over the family business.
Pinocchio just wants to be made into a made man.
Want to be a real man, Papa. I want to be a real man, Papa. You gotta learn the blue fairy. Gotta stay away from that blue fairy, kid.
The blue fairy's good though. What the fuck?
That blue fairy, it mean no good. Come on.
I'm sorry, like you can meme, but the mob story of Pinocchio would actually be really good.
I would watch the shit out of that.
Like, and you could just turn it could be like a true mobster movie, but it's like Pinocchio.
Yeah.
And like you just take like the whale thing that's like a rival like mobster,
No, it's a casino
like kidnaps
called the
Geppetto
Whale.
or something. Something like anything. He's trapped somewhere else. He's not in an actual whale. Like there's a lot we could do with it. There's a lot you could do with it.
The fact is, they keep trying to kill Pinocchio, but he won't die. He's like the ultimate mob boss. Like, that's a main thing in the book, the Collodi book, is people keep trying to kill Pinocchio. Like, they hang him up by a tree, they try to burn, and he just won't die. And that I'm like, that's
so like
actually...
we could bring it back, and it makes sense too, because it's like, well, yeah, he's in the mob. Everyone wants him dead.
All right, guys. We are gonna make this movie. We gotta make this movie now. That's gotta be my follow-up.
Jess, you already made a bunch of money to make a movie. You can just change what the movie is.
You can't change what the movie is.
You just easily change what the movie is. I mean, you could also just maybe raise some money for an AIDS charity and instead use it to produce the Pinocchio movie.
On that note, let's go to our own money laundering AIDS charity and talk about our Patreon. Hey guys, sorry to interrupt you in the middle of the show, but we've got a shill at you. Today's show is brought to you by the extremely kind donations by our donors over at Patreon. Andrew, tell us a little bit about Patreon.
If you donate to our Patreon, the money definitely doesn't go to us and get you extra perks. We're actually donating it to a real charity, and this is a real thing and not a joke.
Don't say this, Andrew.
I am actually joking, though. That is actually a joke. All of the money goes to us, but
We're
get
a parody
some
account.
extra
It's in our
perks.
description.
It's in our description. We are verified because we paid $8. You can see extra stuff like commentary tracks, and we have bonus episodes. You can request episodes from us at certain tiers.
You can also be a guest
and you
on
can
the show.
even appear as a guest on the show if you donate the right amount. You can also join this list of names that I will now read out. We will butcher your name horribly, and you will love it. You'll think it's hilarious. Our current patrons are Melissa Goldman, Danielle Renix, Jessica Stampede, Ewan Cassidy, Monica Thoreau, Mina Maniri, Brent Black, Nathaniel Stacey Coombe, Joseph Evans Green, Mary Lou Choquette, John Vanals, Wes Walker, Musical Hell, Kyle Summers, Janae C., Scoot and the Technicolor Dreamcoat, Liz Lim, Allison Stuller, Nothing is Certain Except Beth and Taxes, Thespian, Ren Cullen, Rafael Martinez Solaz, Jessica T., Mitchell Young, Chai Teacup, Katie McDonough, Chris Marcotte, Mimu, Kiji Marie Anastasio, Leela, RJ Noriga, Charlie B., Bjorn Hermans, Erica S., Toriana Frazier, Sammy the Most Lopez, Leanna Morton, Kaylee Blazier, Birdman69, Cinemageddon Reviews, Villainous Miss, Sophina Ali, The Omega Geek, Paige Pearson, Maddie Wargle, Eliza Erdman, Anna Luskatova, Cheska Veray, Sarah Den Blaker, Evan Ball, Zachary Torres, Spencer Hellier, and Gathering Party Before Venturing Forth.
These folks give us a little extra financial support that helps us keep the lights on here at Musicals with Cheese. If you'd like to join them in supporting us and get all those fun perks, such as Patreon-only commentaries, episodes a day earlier, even earlier, and a bunch of other shit, come join them over at Patreon. It would mean the world to us. And if we don't, I'm going to kill this cat. All right, let's get back to the show. This show is
You
so
want to just talk about all the songs at once? We could just lump them all together. Like, what do you think of the sappy pop song that they wrote?
Here's the problem. Bree, play all the songs at once, overlapping each other. She's shaking her head like, why the fuck? No.
Yeah, but if you tried it, you'd realize that they would all fit perfectly together because they're the same song.
Honestly, it would be shocking how accurate that is. Every song thinks it's a memory from Cats. Every song wants to be the power ballad that is played on the radio. And so much so that every song was turned into a pop song sung by pop artists for no reason.
But which one was the most memory from Cats?
Stronger, the Act 1 closer.
I can run now, so much faster. Now defeat won't be my master. For to conquer the demons, I won't have to wait any longer. I've got to be stronger.
It's also the one that performed at the Tony Awards.
Though I feel like the one, and I can't even remember which one it is, but it's the one where I think it's Barry and Sylvia are singing together.
Yeah, that one's gross.
Right.
What You Mean to Me, which could be a song about anyone saying
Yes,
anything.
that's it.
I won't lie. I'm a little bit frightened of my imagination. Swear I'll try
Yes, but I think that one was the one that I felt like was the most memory from Cats.
They really want it to be, yeah, I agree. However,
I do think, Stronger, where that's the one at the end of Act 1, and he goes up on the, like, board with the sword in his hand or whatever.
Yep.
Yeah, that one is something.
I do want to say there is one song that was designed to be the memory from Cats, and the big song to promote this show, and was in the original Leicester production, and is the only song remaining from that production to bring it back around to the top. And that is the song Neverland.
Whenever I was frightened, if I ever felt alone, I turned to the night sky and a star I call my own, somewhere I could run to, just across the Milky Way. If you like, I could take you. It's just a light year and a day.
Is between J.M. Barrie and Sylvia, where he's describing Neverland, which was this place that he made up when his brother died as like his idea of heaven, and would eventually become like Michael Jackson's backyard, just as J.M. Barrie intended. Yeah, it's a fine song. And it was one that they had so much confidence in that they had Jennifer Hudson sing it a year before the show even premiered at the Tonys, just because. And it's the only one from that original show. Like, it worked better in that original show because it felt like an outlier and powerful because it was this big, powerful song. And then...
But now it's just surrounded by songs that all sound the same.
Yeah. And maybe... And it's the only one that's really powerful at the end... Because, the sparkle tornado that kills Sylvia. And,
yes.
Yeah, it kind of works there. However,
she goes to Neverland.
Every other song is kind of garbage. I'm going to pull up some of my notes about any of the songs here, just to see if I can give you a play-by-play of what I was feeling.
Sure.
Play may be the show's biggest sin and the grossest song.
Can you remember back when you were young, when all the simple things you did were so much fun? You got lost somewhere along the way. You've forgotten how to play every single day. Am I right? I remember back when I was just a boy. I got a gun and holster for a Christmas toy. Pretending to be a cowboy was the very best, 'cause I was always the fastest gun in all the West. I'd play.
Do you remember that song where they're all at the bar and they make the Cheers joke and they sing a song that feels like it's from Come From Away, but it has all the soul sucked out of it?
Yeah, it's like the whole cast, right?
Yeah.
Or something like, and they're all in this bar singing.
Yeah, and then you've got a song, Something About That Night, where they're all getting ready for the show and it's like in 3 different parts. And it sounds like it's from High School Musical. Like, no exaggeration, it sounds like a High School Musical song.
I'm sure I have never felt like this before. Something about this night that I cannot express. Excitement or nervousness, how intense I couldn't guess. But there is something about this night that I just can't ignore. All the sweat and tears and more, I made this over fighting for.
I feel like they started struggling to find songs, like things to write about, once he had already basically written the show, and now they're just trying to put it on.
Which is why...
So they're like, well, what do they sing about now?
The original production, you know, singing they put off Peter Pan's existence until Act 2, and then all the reviews of the original Leicester production is all like, Act 2 is better because it's all about Peter Pan. And then Harvey Weinstein was like, oh, make it all about Peter Pan. What are we doing here? And then he licked Princess Leia. So, Bree, can you try an experiment with me for this? I'm going to send you one of the romance song about that Sylvia sings from the original production and put it up next to All That Matters, which is just a nothing song in Act 1. Like, in one of them, it's called He Makes Me Smile, which is a very specific thing where she's justifying why she's wasting time on James Barrie, the weird parasocial connection she has to him. And All That Matters is a generic pop song that could be about literally anything. And just play them back to back for our audience right here so you can really get how jarring the differences are.
There are days when I feel so afraid I can hardly remember to breathe. When reality crashes in wave after wave, pulling me further beneath. So what's the point in planning for a future if it all can be stolen away? It's all I can do to hold on and survive when the colors have faded to gray.
Ugh. I hate this show so much in its final form. And I didn't really hate it before I watched other versions of it.
I feel like your hatred is coming from a place of knowing that it could have been much better.
Yeah.
I kind of am struggling to like hate it because it just feels like a really bland, like nothing show.
Yes.
Which I don't like, and I wouldn't like actively want to watch this again, but I can't bring myself to hate it.
I would have been in the same boat as you. And when I originally brought this in and got us all lined up to do this, I thought we were just going to meme on it, make a few Harvey Weinstein jokes, and make fun of Matthew Morrison, which we didn't really even do this episode. And
He honestly, I don't think he deserved it here.
yeah, he wasn't the problem with this. I will say he comes off a little bit more predatory toward the boys than any of the other actors, like Jeremy Jordan and everyone else. And Julian Evenden.
He also looks the part like the least out of everybody since he has like this curly hair
Yeah.
that just doesn't look anything like what the actual Barry looks like.
He should have been an American Psycho. I think he would have actually done pretty well in that show.
If you say so.
Like,
I don't know if that show would have brought him anywhere though.
no, but he actually looks a bit like Patrick Bateman and plays like the I have no soul behind my eyes kind of look very well.
He was on Glee, so.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think I hated this that much before I listened to what it originally started as. And it obviously was something that someone cared about in its initial form, and then it became a product.
It can be difficult to hear a show, instead of going through new versions and getting like mildly better as it goes, instead just like immediately falling off a cliff and just becoming the worst version of itself.
The nosedive is incredible. Like,
Yeah.
and I didn't think it had, I always thought this was just a product, like a goofy little product, and it's stupid. And this hurts more now, sincerely. But what is our overall thoughts and our cheese ratings? Andrew, why don't you go first?
So like it's bad. And I mean, I wouldn't recommend it, but like the music is boring songs, but they're all like listenable. Like none of them feel like, oh, this song is like actively hard to listen to.
There's a couple.
So there's maybe a couple, but like the majority of the songs in here are like vapid pop songs that you can kind of sit through. The story is incredibly bland, and the characters are incredibly bland. It's overall, it's like the musical equivalent of like a wet blanket, I guess. It's just really fucking boring. So I wouldn't recommend it. But if you like it, I guess I understand. Like, if you like Peter Pan, you'll probably like this because it's all fan service.
The thing is, if you like Peter Pan, you already know this, so you get nothing out of it.
Yeah, that's the other thing, though. If you like Peter Pan, why are you watching this when you could be watching, like, the Peter Pan musical that's, like, better?
Yeah.
As far as a cheese rating goes, I guess, like, to fit with the type of rating I'm giving the show, I have to pick something like a boring cheese. And I know I've given shows American cheese before, which is what I think of as like the staple boring cheese, but I feel like it kind of deserves it. So
That's fair. Bree, what's your cheese rating?
The show itself doesn't sound great, but this show was great. I mean, hell, we got Peter Pan Mafia version out of it. So
This Pinocchio Mafia.
Pinocchio.
Although Peter Pan Mafia would also work, and their
Chippendale
gang
did
would
that.
be called the Lost Boys. Yeah, Chippendale already did it, though.
okay, but Pinocchio Mafia version.
Brie, can
Coming
you
to
Google
you.
to see that no one else made that joke first?
Yes, let me see.
It's not even a joke. I'm dead serious. I think this would be a great idea.
I would watch the shit out of this movie.
Let's see.
Hey, yo, Geppetto, where'd you get this boy from? I made it at home, Vinny.
Okay, so I looked up Pinocchio Mafia.
Yeah?
All I got is stream Rubber Nocchio by Pinocchio Mafia on SoundCloud.
Wait, what's that? Play some of that. I need to hear what that sounds like.
I'm afraid. Hold on.
Here, I sent a private chat for you guys.
Oh, you found it.
Hold on. I'm going to present.
Bob, you're fired. I am not racist.
Is that a song?
What the fuck is this? I honestly, I don't know what this is. Did you read the bottom? Oh my god. I'm sort of worried the people that made this are like 4chan Nazis, but it's still kind of
Yeah.
funny.
The album is dedicated to PepsiCo and Hillary Clinton. Our parents didn't like this album because they are Republicans and members of KKK. Thanks, Dada Schwizzle, little sister, for the speech and let them know.
I hate the internet.
Is this different from
These
Rubber
guys seem
Nocchio?
like These guys seem like they're probably bad people, but
That was funny.
kind of funny that this album exists.
Hold on. I want to know what Rubber Nocchio sounds like. We're going to listen to that together.
Get ready to... It's just electric music, I think. But where was I going with my cheese rating? Oh, I picked True du Cure. True du Cure. I don't know how to pronounce it, but it's a stinky cheese and it's banned in Paris, and I feel like this is fitting.
That's fair. Brie, lovely cheese rating. Lovely digression, because I don't want to think about this show much anymore. Finding Neverland's bad. I don't like it. The worst part is, I think I might have liked it had they let the original composers do what they were doing. However, that being said, I'm going to give this a crumb of cheese left in the corner of the house for 6 years, where at one point it was probably edible and pretty good, but right now it's hard, it's gross. There's nothing of value in it. But you know what? Try to sell it anyways. Fuck it. Who cares? It's just like a paying public. It's not like they're real human beings. Not like they're worth anything aside from money. Just siphon out that AIDS donation money and just put it back to this cheese. Put it into this cheese and sell it. Sell it as a product. Get Zendaya to try to sell this cheese. Get Jennifer Lopez to try to sell this cheese. Just keep selling it. Just keep selling until you die and you're in prison because you're a horrible, horrible man. 1 star. Juliet, be sure to write that verbatim. All right, guys, that's the end of Finding Neverland. Welcome to December. This is how we're starting December because I think we're gonna switch episodes. Different than I told Brie to do it. Yeah. So that was great. How'd you like that, Andrew?
Yeah, I've had an Advantasia song stuck in my head because of this show.
Which one?
It's just called Neverland.
You know who definitely never lands?
Peter Pan.
Our wonderful patrons. Thank you guys for listening. Please follow us on iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, Musicals with Cheese. We're on Twitter, Cheesy Musicals, Patreon, Musicals with Cheese, Instagram, Musicals with Cheese, YouTube page, Musicals with Cheese. We have a Patreon-only podcast called Patreon with Cheese. Our email is musicaltheaterlives@gmail.com. And go there and tell us how wrong we are if you think we're wrong because this is your favorite show and we didn't do the nuances because we didn't jerk you off too much. Our keeper of the cheese is Juliet Antonio. Here's some ASMR noises for you, Juliet. How you doing? Let the bodies hit the floor. Let the bodies hit the. This show is produced by
She did the joke.
This show is produced by the wonderful, the incredible, the very tired Brianna Jones. I love you so much. Thanks for tolerating me. Our theme songs were created by Robin Nash of IOU Music UK. Thank you to the Broadway Podcast Network for having us on the platform, for not kicking us off, for talking mean things about Harvey Weinstein. I don't know. On that note, is there anything else we have left to say before we wrap this on up?
You guys are cool. And I would definitely steal your childhood and write a story about it.
Oh boy. Can we write Gangster Pinocchio first?
Yes.
Oh, Geppetto, where'd you get that boy? I'm gonna steal that boy and put him in a show.
In the end, in the end, he becomes a real boy, but he's still part of the mafia.
No, he
I
runs
do not want the ending to be he leaves the mafia.
No, he cannot leave the mafia. He runs the empire.
Yes. The ending is not an ending where he becomes lawful or good. The ending is that he becomes really good at being in the mafia.
He fucking blackmails the blue fairy as opposed to like actually learning a lesson. Breaks her legs. I'm gonna break your son's legs,
Yes.
blue fairy, unless you give me what I want, and what I want is a thunk in my chest.
He like talks. He has like a heart to heart with Geppetto, and Geppetto's like he's like the blue fairy won't make me. He won't make me real, or she won't make me real unless I become a good person. And Geppetto's like, my son, you know what you have to do, and he gives him a gun.
I'm sorry you got caught up in this business, Pinocchio. I'm sorry that this is where you could. I was thinking you might one day be Senator Pinocchio, President Pinocchio. It was never meant to be you.
Dad, that's just not who I am.
I didn't mean for this. You make me proud. But once this information gets out there, they will have you assassinated, and it's your job to see that you get them first. And the person will tell you will be the man that betrayed you. You cannot trust him.
This is the only version where Geppetto dies.
Pinocchio kills Geppetto. Like, he turns on him.
Oh, damn, that's so badass.
Like, Pinocchio, like, carves his nose to be a shank, and he's like, tell me the truth, Pinocchio. Did you rat on me? No, Papa Geppetto. Stabs right in the chest. I'm sorry, Pop.
No, I want his lie. I want his lie to be that he loves him. Tell me you love me, son. He says, I love you. And it goes,
I love you, Papa
stabs
Geppetto.
him.
I lied.
This is the worst version of Pinocchio ever.
No, already, there's no way. There's been too many. We can't be worse than the Pauly Shore one. Father.
Can we be worse? Can we be worse than the Disney remake where he finds horse poop
and plays in it?
Ooh, it's stinky.
All right, we'll see you next time on Musicals with Cheese. When you look, what do you see? Is it real? Is it fiction? Only make-believe. You may think we are safe on our path. You must believe, but the grass is the water. The ride is too fast. Wanna fucking...